podcast. Good evening. I am so excited. This is my first episode, and I have been wanting to do the Warrior podcast, I would say, for the last 6 to 7 years. This has been a passion of mine. I have been wanting to talk to people about the things that they're doing, real live people. I know in the social media world, we were really fascinated with the so-called famous people, but what about the people who work hard every day? Well, that's what the Warrior podcast is all about. And today, as I was getting ready for this podcast, I thought about Florence Nightingale. And you might be wondering, Florence Nightingale? Yes, I thought about Florence Nightingale. Florence Nightingale was a British nurse who was born in 1820, who was credited for being one of the founders of modern nursing. And the one thing about Florence Nightingale is that she was very infectious in everything she did. That woman put her mind to it, and she didn't stop. It didn't matter what the circumstances was. Even during I think it's called the Crimean War. Forgive me for pronouncing it incorrectly, but during that war, as a nurse, as a woman in the 1800s, she was very pivotal in the improvement of sanitation and care for soldiers on the field. So not only was she nursing them, but she was concerned with the environment and the circumstances that they were dealt. A lot of those young men didn't ask to get into the war; they were forced into the war. And during that war is where she was given the nickname, the Lady with the Lamp. Now, this whole time, I thought Florence Nightingale was her nickname. I didn't know that was actually her name. Somebody actually took out time to name their child Florence Nightingale. Now, Florence is a popular name, Nightingale, not so much, but I thought that was her nickname. But no, her nickname was the Lady with the Lamp. And after the war, she established the Nightingale Training School for nurses. So obviously, the soldiers were so grateful for the care that she gave them. They thought, you know what, we're going to give her this nickname and we're going to support her in whatever she's doing. And they supported the fact that she wanted to start a nursing school for other young women. And she became a great advocate for public health reforms and practically transformed the nursing profession. Now, tonight, I have someone with me that I believe is also the lady with the lamp. I've given her this nickname whether she likes it or not. This woman is a modern day lady with the lamp. Um, she's known in my circles as evangelist Felicia Lee. Um, but let me tell you a little bit about her before I get her to start talking to us tonight. Felicia Michelle Lee. She considers herself a servant leader. Now, those two words usually don't go hand in hand in regular social circles. Most people either say they are a servant or they say if they are a leader. They don't embrace the thought of being a servant and a leader. But when I tell you some of the things that this woman has done in her lifetime, you're going to understand exactly what I mean. This sister is she is known in the metropolitan ecclesiastic circle in the Church of God in Christ in the city of Los Angeles and in the outskirts cities around Los Angeles. She has been a Sunday school superintendent, a district and state Sunday school field rep, a pastor's aide, Bible band teacher, a deaconess and outreach team member. She's been a church secretary. She was one of the youngest to join and become a committee member of the West Altadena Redevelop Initiative. That's a whole mouthful right there. She was a candidate for the Altadena Town Council. She was an administrator for 20 years for her family's daycare facility. She was an advocate serving, and I don't know if she still is, but as far as I know, she was an advocate serving the Pasadena Unified School District. And I'm talking about Pasadena, California. The Pasadena Unified School District as the African American Parent Council board member, and also at her local alma mater, Muir High School. She was the AAPC coordinator. My goodness, the list goes on. In 2020, is when she finally became an evangelist missionary. So before she became an evangelist missionary, the majority of the things that I spoke about, she was working already in the field doing. Now her current profession, she works as an on-site account analysis for a major hospital in the city of Glendale. She's a business owner and founder of her own um, Golden Age Advocacies, and I'm calling it a center because I know it's going to just blow up and go far beyond whatever she has ever dreamed. But more than that, with all the accolades I just got through talking about, she is a proud aunt of 11 nieces and nephews. She loves her parents. She loves her church. She loves her friends. I think the girl even loves her enemies. She is a walking Florence Nightingale in the year 2025. Come on, everybody just start clapping. I want to introduce to some and reintroduce to others. Sister Evangelist Missionary Felicia Michelle Lee. Thank you for joining me
Wow.
today, sis.
Wow. What an introduction, Evangelist Watson. Waterwell Ministries, thank you so much for thinking of me tonight. Appreciate it. It's
You
an
know,
honor.
I had to have you as my first guest. And I was like, "Well, who can I have as my first guest?" And it was a no-brainer. If I want to talk about being a warrior, and if I want to talk about the fact that, if we're going to wait for the government to wake up, if we're going to wait for the church to wake up, and I'm sorry, this is a church show, but let's be honest, even the church got to wake up. If we're going to wait for that to happen, nothing's going to get done. Do you,
Mhm.
you agree with me?
I
Nothing's
agree.
going to get done. We have to get
Mhm.
out there and we
Yeah,
have to be about the Father's business. We have to be
absolutely.
about the work of the Lord. Greetings,
Absolutely.
greetings, greetings. How you feeling tonight?
Thank you. I feel great. It's exciting to be able to share, especially when you're the background person. So this is definitely an honor.
Okay, what you talking about? The background person, the background, the side ground, the front ground, all the ground. Most churches only have a handful of people that actually help
Mhm.
keep it running. I mean, let's just be
Of course.
honest. Most
Absolutely.
churches don't, even if it's a mega church, you
Right.
only have a good handful of faithful people. And
True.
there's nothing against other people who just don't,
Yes.
have that passion or they
Right.
just can't be involved. But you
Right.
know what? There's something about when you have served the Lord and served people
Mhm.
right together. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
know, and a lot of times people will say things like it doesn't take all of that, or man, you're just doing too much, or you're everywhere, or every time I turn around, you trying to do something. How do you feel when you hear people make those comments?
Well, what I realized that the benefit as you talked about, doing it and being consistent. People are looking for that. They're looking for people that are going to be consistent. They're looking for people that are going to do what they say. And I think when, for me, I've experienced people's word and them not keeping it. So, the Lord is like, well, you have to be that person that you don't see. You have to show it. Even if people never change, you have to still be that person and you have to still make sure that you are obedient to what He's telling you to be obedient to. Because I remember doing a speech when I ran for Miss MEJ probably in 1987 that said people will talk. Well, people have been talking since the beginning of time. They're not going to change, but you have to be that change. So that's
Amen.
what inspires.
Eh, See, y'all hear what she just said? It's something about certain communities that you grow up in certain environments. And not trying to tell your age or my age. Well, I don't mind telling my age, but
Fine.
you know, I see a lot of, older people and younger people, but not that many people around our age that talks about, you know, the environment that we grew up in the church world. Now, I'm gonna
Right.
be honest. My mother, she accepted Christ when I was 11, so I wasn't like a baby in the church. I
Mhm.
didn't, I didn't learn about Christ until I was going almost into my teenage years. And so when I first met you, I had only been saved, what, about what, 9 years and almost 10. And at that age I thought, oh, I've been saved a while, but it was just, and so even though I wasn't an infant, I still was young. And when I married my ex-husband, and that's how we know each other. I married into a church family. Um, we I was only I was it was I got married at 18. A week later I turned 19. And so when I joined the church, and I didn't even get on a membership roll. I joined when I said I do.
Yes,
Because I happened to marry a man whose grandfather was the pastor.
that's
But it
right.
was it was a time in this country, in California. I had just moved to California at the age of 17. So if everything was still new to me. And but it's something about the late 80s, early 90s. Describe to those who have no idea how it was living in Altadena, California in the late 80s, early 90s, going to high school, because you were still, I think, a senior in high school when I
Yeah,
got married. And so
yeah,
being in high
92.
school, yeah, being a senior in high school and still trying to be involved in the church and still being in the atmosphere of Altadena, because Altadena had really nice homes, but then they also had that gang life going on. So kind of discuss a little bit of that for us.
That's a good question. It was definitely different as far as, so I actually walked to high school, going and coming. Now, my mother says, I want you to come back the way you left. So I leave the house, no makeup on, no lipstick. I better come back like that. Very different. I would get phone calls when I got back home and cousins would say, I saw you walking down the street and you're putting on someone's eyeshadow. Um, so it was so different then because it was a time where another adult could tell you something, and you better be doing that. You'll get told from them, and when you get home, you'll get told again. Your parents is going to be a totally different ball game when you get home. And even the same thing, which was very interesting because the late 80s into the 90s, junior high, for me was salvation when I got for real, trying to live right. It was rough. Okay. Um, It was rough because there's boys, the parents are like, "Don't talk to anyone." I had an incident. I remember one boy tried to walk me home, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my dad with a saw cutting the trees, looking down the street. Times were different, and I said, "I think you better not walk me down my street. I think you better turn around and go home." And so being saved, it's like you wonder, how do people at your school know that you're saved because you're no longer that person who is gonna do whatever everyone else is doing. But I also wanted to be the one to fit in. So for me, it was very difficult to even think about living for Christ. Like, wait a minute, we got too many parties going on. But at that same time, you're for me, it's always a conscious thing. You're always thinking about, okay, if I go over here, something's gonna happen. But the difference is today from today, someone is always looking out for you. Someone will always tell me, even at that time, you know you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. And like, no. Um, So I know for me, that was a rough time because it also brought bullying, and that's a lot to think about, just because like then you had people who, for me, friends would say, "Oh, Felicia, we're saved too," and I'm like, "You are?" Because that just seemed different than what I was taught. So that was a very interesting time, but I feel like if you can make it, if you made it through that time and you're still here today at our age, pretty impressive. That's God. That is not something Felicia could do on her own. It's all God.
Well, when I first moved to California, I think it was 89. And then
Mhm,
I was going into my senior year. It was the end of the junior year, going
mhm,
into my senior year. And, I didn't know any, I'm coming from, we had moved from Arizona, but we had only been in Arizona a couple of months. So I'm fresh from Missouri. And, we thought Colors was just a movie. We didn't know just how real Crips and
Yeah,
Bloods were. And
yeah,
to come in at that time and to move into California, and you see Hollywood, but yet you see they were having they were having shootings on the freeway. People were picking
mhm,
people off. And
yeah,
it was such a different kind of time, and yet,
yeah,
when we went to church, no one shot our church up. No
yeah,
one, no one dared
mhm.
to come in there,
Right,
trying to
right,
be violent. You see these
right.
movies where they do all kind of crazy stuff, but they wasn't doing that at our church.
Nope,
And so,
absolutely, absolutely.
but it even though it was a time where you had all these movies that came out, Menace to
Yeah,
Society, Boys in the Hood.
yeah,
The 90s, the early 90s was so you know, I know for myself, I mean, I accepted Christ as my savior, but I wasn't, sold out. And so,
mhm,
I
yeah,
would go to church on Sunday, but yet,
mhm.
Saturday night, we might have been at a party
Right,
all night long,
right,
but we
right,
was like, you got to make sure
right,
you get to church.
right.
And so, I mean, just being transparent, you
Yes,
know,
yes,
um, it was, and even that was me being a young married woman. I mean, I didn't go to clubs without my husband at the time, but I still wanted to, quote unquote, have fun, have a good time.
right,
And I
right,
bring all this up to
right,
say that
right,
even in the, like you were saying, people still looked out for you. They would say things
mhm,
like, "You don't have any business doing here," or if
mhm.
something went wrong at the party, they were quick to start praying.
Yes, yes,
They,
yep,
I've been at a lot of parties where
yes,
somebody, passed out or hit their head or something. Then it got real, real quick.
yes,
And so,
right,
the community that I felt then, it kind of was ingrained inside of us. Basically, what
right,
I'm saying is that, being selfless was
Yeah.
normal. It
Yes.
wasn't, what people, because I was saying about all those things that you do and that you've done. And even though like in today's society, there's a lot of people that do like activism and things like that. But far as really going above and beyond, giving of yourself, whether it's financial, whether it's emotionally, whether it's just taking out time, that's what we saw. That's what we
Mhm.
grew
Yep.
up on. And
Absolutely.
when it's in you, it's just in you.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you about the fact that you do so much, but I wouldn't expect nothing less from you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
because of the environment we grew up in, where as an adult, if you saw someone's child doing something that's wrong or against what the parents
And
said, you said something, you did
yeah.
something. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's difficult for me nowadays because you know, where there were just a few
Absolutely.
parents that said, "Hey, you can't talk to my child any kind of way, or you better not say nothing to my kid." Now it's like everybody
Right.
says it. Everyone is walking on eggshells, whether it's
Yes.
ministry or just being a neighbor
Yes.
or
Yes.
being a grandparent or being a parent or an auntie or an uncle.
Yes.
You just can't,
Yes.
it makes it very uncomfortable. So I'm so glad that we
Definitely.
grew up in a time,
Mhm.
us being born in the 70s. I'm gonna tell my age. I was born in
Mhm.
73.
Mhm.
You was born in
Yeah.
what, 74?
74.
74. We were born in a time where um, we were blessed to be able to see so many different type of transitions in the church,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
and even in society, we've gone from having landline telephones to no one having a landline
Yeah.
telephone. If
Right.
somebody picked up a landline phone and called you, you would wonder what number is this? What is
That's
going
right.
on? I ain't answering this. Things have
Exactly.
changed.
Yes, it
Um,
has.
and I know when it comes to sometimes when you're older, we tend to start acting as if we're the only ones that ever been through anything, and I know that's not true.
Right.
Every generation has their own hurdles that they've had to overcome, and
Yeah.
the church has always been evolving and
Yeah.
transitioning and changing, but
Absolutely.
there's something about sticking to the foundation that is kind of, I
Oh,
believe,
yeah.
is very important. I'm not as strict as I
Absolutely.
used to be. Being Kojic, you got to be real strict. I'm not as strict as I used
Right.
to be.
Right.
However, there's still some fundamental foundations,
Absolutely.
foundational things that I still stick to. I
Yeah.
don't care if you got on red lipstick. I wear a red
Mhm.
lipstick in a hot minute.
Mhm.
However, you
Right.
see, I got color in my little twist.
Mhm.
However, there are other things though that I just won't do.
Mhm.
There are
Right.
there are lines in the sand that I must
Right.
keep drawing. And a lot of
Absolutely.
times juggling our professional lives with our walk with Christ can be a little
Yeah.
difficult, especially when we are servant minded.
Right.
You and I both work in customer service in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an
Yeah.
advocate, you're an analyst, but you still are working with the public. You know,
That's
they may
right.
be a public at a private institution. How have you been able to carry over your servant leadership into your career, the job that you work at?
Oh, that's so good. Um, Definitely praying and fasting. I I I have to constantly throughout the day ask God to help me because just because it takes a lot when you want to talk back, when you want to say something back to people who you feel you're not when you're not treated well when all you want to do is help them. So if I'm helping someone, let's say 75 years old, or even if they're 30 years old, and I'm explaining to them how to fill out financial assistance, one person told me I needed to go back to customer service and learn it. I'm constantly talking to the Lord because I want to clap back. I want to like, Lord, this isn't fair. But um, I listen out and they'll say, "Are you still there?" I am, and my tone stays has to stay down. I definitely know it's prayer. Like I it's not Felicia, so that's how I stay having a neutral voice. Is making sure I understand this is not these people don't know me. They're not my family. They're not my community, but they are my community
Yes.
because I still have to leave them with a residue. I still have to leave them with a light. I still have to leave them with at least to know this girl got something. We done said we done threw everything at her today. We done cussed her out, but she still just want to help us. I've even had someone come back and apologize to me for being loud with me, for telling me off. They just said, when I sat in your chair, I felt a peace. I said, that was Jesus. That was not Felicia. So what keeps me is a constant, like literally talking to Lord, just literally like, you hear this? Jesus, you hear what they say? You hear this? Reminding they don't know me. Just remember your purpose. Remember you're here to help them. That's it. That's it. So for me, bringing that into the job is I even had an interview question where they asked me, they said, "How do you not take it personal? Because we see that you bring a peace to your job." I said, "It ain't me." And I'm reminded that they don't know me. I don't know them. I just this is my job. My purpose is just to help them. And then it's gonna be a new person. So being reminded that it's not their fault that they have the issues that they have with their bills. I'm just reminded of all these things that it's not personal. I keep telling myself that. Uh, yes. Just being reminded because people say, "Oh, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words don't hurt. Words do hurt." I'd rather have the sticks and stones and put some Neosporin on them than get the hard word. At least I like, oh yeah, that was from me, the dog biting me. But the words can stick with you. So constantly, Lord, you help me process what's been said to me because I want to follow them out the building, but I cannot follow them out the building. It's not the right thing to do. And people are watching me. When you realize people say things, so you're like, can't believe you didn't clap back. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know they were watching me. Being reminded that people are watching us.
That is so true. This morning at work, I was cussed out 3 times
Mhm.
before nine
Wow.
o'clock, and it was only 2 people that cussed me out. So one person cussed me out twice. And the funny thing is that
Wow.
both of them, they were both men, and the men both apologized at the end of the conversation. But I was so ready to get rid. I was so ready for them to
Mhm.
leave and walk out. And there
Yeah,
was a time when I would think, okay, other people are watching me. But sometimes you can get so upset you don't care who's watching. And so you are
absolutely.
so right that we have to stay
Yeah.
prayerful. We have to stay in before the Lord, because how can we be servant minded, be a servant leader outside of the church, if we're going, if we're going to let the things of this world, the cares of this world, get us all frazzled. See, it's one thing
Yeah.
to try to be servant leadership in the church, in those 4 walls, but we got Monday through Saturday that we have to live this life. And God
Yeah.
expects us to still be servants even when
Yes,
we're not at church, even when we're
that's
not
right.
online at church.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
um,
right.
and once the words come out your mouth, you can't take them back. And so even
Mhm.
though I don't want people to say nasty words to me, it's better that I don't say nothing and you going to have to deal with the Lord for your mouth instead of me
That's
having to
right.
deal with the Lord for my mouth. So I like, I
Exactly.
just wanted to bring that up because sometimes
Exactly.
people, especially in the church world, they'll be, this deacon, this, and this evangelist, that. And then on their job, they're a hellion. Don't nobody
Yes.
want to deal with them. They
Yes.
got a nasty stank attitude. Now, usually
Right.
that spills over into the church too. Usually you could
Yes.
tell who
Yes, ma'am.
just be stressing folks out at the job. They stressing everybody else at the church as well. But then
Right.
some have this dual personality where they
Yeah.
syrupy sweet at church, and then on the
Yep.
job they nasty. And so
Yep.
we must
Yep.
remember that we're serving the Lord. We're the Lord's servants. We're God's warriors at all times. We don't take our
All
uniforms
time.
off. You know, our our
Right.
our sword is always on our side. Our helmet is always on
Yeah.
our head.
Yeah.
Anyway, praise God.
Right.
Um,
They
I
have to
want to
be.
talk.
Yes,
I want to
ma'am.
talk a little bit, about ministry and what motivated you to go ahead after you have been just for years working for the Lord. What motivated you to go ahead and become licensed? Because I called you evangelist missionary. And we know this happened just 5 years ago, 2020, but you've been doing this work a long time. So what led you to go ahead and just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and be licensed.
Mm. Amen. That's a good question. I would I believe it was realization that I had. Sometimes I have epiphanies where you just like, oh, um, number one, I have to say my first pastor, he had already told me I needed to go to class. And I was like, but for me, I just didn't want it to be something that was said. I really, and it's not that I didn't believe God told him to tell me that. I just seen where people, evangelist meant just being on the stage. And I just wanted to know, I didn't realize I was doing the work of an evangelist. I really had to kind of search the scriptures and say, okay, what Paul doing? What kind of evangelist is this? And then understanding that it wasn't what I had to say in the pulpit, it was what was my life. One of the things Superintendent always says, let the scripture, letting your life be a reflection of Christ. When I started to really think about how in the corporate world, we get certificates and get licensed, we get our degrees. Well, that's a piece of paper as well, and it doesn't determine your value or what you do, but it's how you use your degree. It's how you use the certificates, and that's what encouraged me to get licensed because I really just felt a heavy burden uh, to really go through that process. And then I end up getting a bachelor's in Christian studies, my experience showed me, oh, you've been looking at it, watching other people who had that title, not knowing that this is not what you've seen is not what it's all about. It's about the title carrying you and not knowing the door that it could put you in. Because I found myself not realizing that people was like, "Oh, been licensed? Okay, now you can come to this college library and check out a book that you need that if you had no card in your bag, you couldn't have checked out this book, even though you live in Pasadena. It's a Pasadena school." So things like that made me really think about, okay, this is not what I was thinking it was because I don't have to have the license to visit the sick and do the things I love doing, but it helped because I can also go to the hospital now with a card.
Mhm.
Um, and even though I go to the hospitals now with my job card, it was different because with that evangelist license, you have to take these classes. And when I started talking about, oh, I took a class on this and that, and I thought, whoa, Old Testament, New Testament, but things I was able to use. I never thought I could use those classes in the real world. I just thought it was just for just the church, not realizing the church that runs over into your personal life, right? So I've been able to share these things with my family because I didn't want them to be like, oh, she's licensed evangelist, and they wanted to send me to send them copies of my certificate and my license, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But I had so me looking at that differently, that it's not just it's bigger than the church. It's about the kingdom. It's so much bigger than it's about when he asks Peter, feed my sheep. It's about bigger than what my vision saw. So that's what encouraged me. Because I was just gonna get the missionary license, got that. It's like, okay, I think I want to go back and get the evangelist license. Because I just thought if you're gonna do this, go to the top. Go as far as you can go. And there's no limit to God.
You know, I reason why I asked you that question is because I mean I understand that you don't have to be licensed, but it seems like in the church world, especially the church circles that you and I usually are a part of, people who are licensed love to tell other people you don't need to be licensed, and it can be discouraging
Right,
to a person who feels that they are led
right,
by the Lord to be licensed. And I just
yes,
feel like, of
yes,
course, the goal is not to just go get a piece of paper or have a card
right,
to carry, but let's
right,
stop downplaying it. I remember going into hospitals to
yeah,
pray and having a
that's
nurse come
good.
in and say,
Mm,
do you have a license? And I pulled it out. I had to show
yeah.
my Kojic card, and they were like, "Oh, okay,"
Right.
because it does matter in
Yeah.
in some
Yes, it
instances.
does.
I've
Yes,
gone
ma'am.
places where
Yes, ma'am.
you have to show your credential.
Right.
So
That's
for
right.
us to try to promote the idea that you don't have to,
Right.
well, no, not you don't have to start. But if you feel
Yes.
led to do, let's stop
Yes.
discouraging people, because especially when you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
things in the community, you want to be able to
Right.
be active politically, you know
Right.
that's why you have people called clergy, even in the police department.
Right.
They have to have a certification or some type of
That's
um,
right.
proof that they have
That's
been
right.
vetted in some kind of way. When we get
Yeah.
licensed, they have to do a background check. They have to make sure we're not on some predator list. There's a lot that goes along with being licensed. And so when people always say, well,
Yeah.
you could do the work of being an evangelist, yes, you can. But let's not pretend that you don't need a license, because you'll sit up there. Some
Right.
places you can't even preach on the corner without being ordained, licensed, or something.
Right.
They will say you
Right.
can't have a permit to do
Exactly.
this. So anyway, I just wanted to
Right.
bring that out
Right. So
because
true. So true.
I feel like beyond denomination, borders, we are Christian first. But I think it bleeds
Yes.
over into all type of denominations where you have people that
Absolutely.
don't, they feel like they're gatekeepers to the ministry. It's like they stand
Right.
there and they determine who can be licensed, who can be
Right.
this or who
Right.
can be that. And it's the call of God, because we see every day people who say they're called by God and they just fall away, and they just full of shenanigans. And so anyway, I just wanted to pull that out because
So
I
true.
feel that a person who worked tirelessly doing the work of an evangelism without her license and then turning around years later to get her license is a testimony to ministry, because ministry, whether
Yeah.
you're licensed or not, is not easy. You get people. People have
No.
told me to not pray for them. I have had to give a prophetic word and I was rebuked in the name of Jesus. I was told to be quiet, to leave them alone. I've had people walk away when they see me coming, that feels
Uh,
like rejection if
that's a
you
lot.
aren't serving the Lord. If
Yeah,
you don't see that God is
right.
the one who led you. I remember sitting, and I'm not going to say this lady's name because we love her. You and I both know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about when I tell you this. I went and sat in the hospital with her. She was in her,
Yes.
final stages. And she wanted me to
Yeah.
pull a tube out of her nose because it was bothering her. They had put these little mitts on her hands and I'm up here trying to sing praise and worship songs. I'm trying to lay hands and she rolled over, looked at me and said, "If you don't shut up, if you don't take this out of my nose." I said, "Mother, I can't take it out your nose." She said, "Well, get out of here." Now she was a faithful,
Yeah.
faithful church
Yeah.
member, but in her last
Yes, you
days,
are.
she was in so
Yeah.
much pain. And I could have felt
Yeah.
like, oh, this is awful. I don't ever want to do
Right.
this again. I don't want to go sit in
Right.
a hospital with somebody. I'm
Right.
trying to do the work of an evangelist. This ain't
Right. Woo.
she's sitting up there. She's almost cussing me out. But finally she just turned her back on me. But it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
easy doing the work of
No.
an evangelist, whether you are licensed or not. But when
Mm.
you
Yes.
take it seriously and you say, you know
Yes.
what, for God I live and for God I die, I'm gonna do
Mhm.
this whether you want me to or not. I can
Yes.
pray for you whether you want me to or not. Because I
That's
could
right.
I could sit in the parking lot of the hospital and pray for you. I could be sitting outside the
Listen.
business and pray for you. I could be sitting at my desk
Listen.
and pray for you. Praise God.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hold you I don't want to hold you too long.
Ooh,
What are
my
you
God.
currently doing? Because we've talked about all these things, but I
Yeah.
hear there's something there's something brewing, and I know it's not
Yeah.
ready yet, but I believe it's a passion of yours. Talk about this
Yeah.
book that I hear is brewing that you're gonna be
Yeah.
getting ready to put out.
Absolutely. I'm completing. It's called um, Good Morning, and the whole purpose is finding ways to have a good morning. I spent some time, saying good morning to people, and some say, "What's so good about the morning?" And number one, we woke up. The Lord woke us up. Number two, He gives us new mercies every day. And I had a thought. I said, "Lord, how many mercies are we talking about per day?" We're never going to know because the things that we do throughout the day, we would know. So this is going to be a 365 days of good morning. And it started from me on social media every day saying good morning with a scripture or some kind of quote. And I pretty much am compiling what I've done over the past 2 years into this inspirational um, yearbook for
Oh,
good
praise
morning.
God. We need some inspiration right now. The way things are going in this country, in
Yeah,
our community, we
yeah,
need some inspiration. And so I'm so
absolutely.
excited. I can't wait till this book comes out. I can't wait till you have your launch party or launch discussion. Maybe we could be on this channel launching it on your
Yeah,
channel. It doesn't matter to me.
that'll be
I'm just
awesome.
excited because there's
Thank you.
something about a daily devotional. There's something about
Mhm,
getting encouragement for your day.
mhm.
And
Absolutely.
many people they forget the fact that no matter how much work you do, no matter how
Mhm.
in encouraging you try to be to others, we all
Yeah,
need encouragement for ourselves. And when you are
absolutely.
servant, like when you're a servant minded individual,
Absolutely.
a servant leader, you tend to find least least amount of moments where other people are encouraging you, or at least you don't see
Mhm.
it. You feel like, oh, I've been
Absolutely.
encouraging people all day. Well, who's going to encourage
Right,
me? Well,
right.
this book, I believe, is going to be something that if
Mhm.
nobody said nothing nice to you today, You
Yes.
gonna better turn that page and see something. So I'm
Yes.
excited about that. Also, tell
Yes.
us a little bit about your Golden Age Senior Advocacy program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That actually it's very interesting because I've started taking classes with Los Angeles County that are for small businesses, and I've always wanted to have a business, whether it's a 501(c)(3) or I'm sorry, or LLC,
Oh,
and
wait a minute. And for
it's
those of you who
really
don't know what a
um,
501c3, 50, I can't say it right. It's a
nonprofit. Yes.
nonprofit. She said whether it's a nonprofit or a profit. Y'all, I'm tired at the end of the day. My tongue ain't working right. Anyway, back to what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so really advocating for them, making phone calls for them. It's something that has really spiked out of control, the amount of spam calls that seniors get. I literally get phone calls from old managers, I'm sorry, neighbors who um, are calling me saying, Felicia, the people want to send me $5,000. And no, ma'am, no, sir, that's not true. But a lot of our seniors are falling for these things, and unfortunately, it will mess up their credit. It will mess up their their livelihood where they thought with the Social Security, it will mess those things up. So for the golden age advocacy is really to assist them, and even for medical issues. So they get bills from the hospital that are not correct. So making phone calls for them. It is helping them try, as one of the things during COVID, I went to some of the seniors home from church and helped them get online so they could see the service. Right. So many people, especially my mom, I know, like, I don't text. I don't, but I'm trying to encourage you gotta know some basics. You're gonna be left behind if you don't even want to learn the basics. And especially if you're a widow, it's important for you to feel connected. So I really have a heart for them staying connected. I really have a heart for helping them bridge the gap with uh, it could be their adult children or just the young people. Some young people stay away because they feel that they really can't relate to them, and it's not that seniors don't have testimonies, but it's all in how they can relate, and or them thinking that the young person was not trying to take advantage of them. So my thing is really encouraging them, really helping them get a voice, have their voice be heard. Like I tell them, this is not the time for you to shrink back. You're at this age. We need to hear your story so we can be helped. That's really the biggest thing where they feel people are going to talk about them and people are going to talk about them. And that's it. That's okay. We still need to hear your story. So really, the advocacy is really standing up for them on their behalf. I'm dealing with a senior now. She's 85. I've been helping her for a year fight with the county on the tree that fell in her house. Well, then that becomes elder abuse because she's not being helped. So it's so many things that they have to deal with. So the golden age advocacy is just about standing up for what's right for them.
All right. I'm I hope that this advocacy program really gets to branch out because reason why I got flustered just a minute ago. I was at work this morning, and there was a customer. I don't know how old he was. He didn't speak English very well, and he came to because I work at the DMV. He came in by himself, and he had his cell phone, and I guess it was his granddaughter or someone was on the phone trying to talk to us, but it was very difficult for her, and he was becoming flustered. He was confused. He didn't understand how to renew his license. He just kept walking back and forth, and all I kept thinking was, Why did they let him come by himself? Someone in the family needed to come with him. And then
Somebody.
sometimes we ask the customers, well, where is your family? They say, I don't have any family. I don't have anyone. Everyone is, everyone has passed on, or I don't, I've been so evil that no one wants to deal with me. They don't say that, but that's what I'm thinking. It's like
Yes,
you just been
right.
clowning so long that don't nobody want to deal with you. Now you gonna come into the DMV and now you want us to help you, and we cannot help you in that capacity. And so um I think this is a great this is needed. Some people they think, oh, that's not no, this is definitely needed. And everyone can't afford a lawyer. Everyone can't
Right.
afford a caretaker to be with them 24/7. And so
That's
whatever
right.
this organization is going to be able to do, I think it's going to branch from medical to everyday needs,
Yeah.
that a lot of seniors, because we have a lot of baby boomers. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
largest generation besides the millennials. They're way more
That's
than we
right.
are. We're Gen X, as they
Right.
call us. And so we're a small group compared to the baby
Right.
boomers. And they're not going anywhere that anytime soon. So that means that we have to figure out how to help them
Yeah.
with the changes that are happening in the community, in the society,
That's right.
in the church. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I remember when we were younger, they when they started uh, changing the music style. Oh, some of those older saints that are going on to be with the Lord, they would be so angry. It's too
That's
loud.
right.
I don't understand
Right.
this. And they all that moving and shaking. Well,
Right.
this is
Right.
gospel. This ain't even hip
Yeah.
hop or nothing. What's wrong with you? But
Right.
it, we love our seniors. Me and you,
Yeah.
we're gonna be seniors,
Yeah.
unfortunately, sooner than later. And so I believe that when we model how to treat the seniors, I pray
Yeah.
that we're treated well, the same as well.
Yeah.
Um, Good
Amen.
evening, those of you who joined us. Where I'm talking to, this is the Warrior Podcast. I'm talking to Evangelist Felicia Michelle Lee, and we've just been talking about her servant leadership mindset. She's a servant and yet a leader at the same time. And if that's not what Christ expected us to do, I don't know what is. Now, in my wrap up with her, because I've already had her on far too long, I know she getting tired of me, but there's something about doing the work of the Lord, and wanting to do things that you just don't know for sure if you're able to do. And so this is going to be something I'm going to ask all my guests. So you're my guinea. I won't call you the guinea pig, but you my guinea lady. Uh, um, where do you see yourself as Evangelist Lee in the next 5 years when it comes to your servant your servant leadership? Because things are changing and people are really trying hard to stop people from serving each other and being um, um,
Wow.
helpful. They want to cut out programs. They want to cut out assistance. They want to cut out everything. So, where do you see your ministry in the next 5 years for yourself?
That's a good question. It's something that I've really been thinking about. I definitely see myself in the next 5 years having to have grown more in partnerships. Maybe not having the funds to do and to go, but because literally being in the class that I was in with the business that I'm with the Golden Age Advocacy, I've had other businesses call me and ask how can they partner with me. Now I never thought I just thought people care. Um, my that's where I see myself as having more partners and then also showing others. One of the things I've been able to show people is you don't have to task this by yourself. You don't have to take this on by yourself. So I may not have the money to make lunches, but I volunteer with the Red Cross to go to different city to make lunches with other people who have purchased the food. I just got to be there to make the bags up. And so with with business, I definitely believe in partnerships even more, being encouraged because even when you're having events, I always like to look at the people who are sponsoring and I'll say, oh, as far go and think, oh, they're just too big. But they want to know who's doing the work, who wants to do the work, who wants to help people, who wants to feed the people. And I think partnerships for me is what it has to be. The that I had for years. Believe you just have to do this. There's a whole there's a whole world of people who have the same mindset. And so for me, it's finding those people, finding your community, the people that want to go walk the I mean, I'm literally down the street from people who are in mobile homes. So it's not a thing of, oh, I don't have it to give. It's a thing of how can I put my resource with you? If you buy it, I have no problem walking down the street. So I really believe the next 5 years is going to be crucial to build partners where there's no there's no me trying to take from someone else. It's like, how can we build this kingdom? It's about this kingdom. I don't want to forget that it's about the kingdom. If I'm not doing kingdom with other people who are like minded, just how I'm on the podcast tonight, if I'm not doing kingdom, I don't want it. So the next 5 years will have to be same mindset people, will have to be about our Father's business, about building. That's what I see, and even more uh, of even having opportunities to train other people because many people we talk to want to do the work, they don't know where to start. And I feel like I've been giving so much training over the years. I've been giving, and I'm like, Lord, what have I done with all this, the resources I've been giving, all this sitting in all these classes all day? What have I done with that? Me, it's also about training everywhere we are. Everyone's building because we're walking toward the same goal. So that's what I see for the next 5 years. It is strength in numbers, and I have forgotten that.
That is beautiful. I'm so glad to hear you speak about doing kingdom work. And a lot of times people think the only way I can serve the Lord is in the walls of the
Mhm.
church, in the
Mhm.
walls of the sanctuary. Now, please believe I love being in the walls of the sanctuary, but
Yeah.
we can't capture this world if we stay only inside the church. And if we
Yes, ma'am.
only partner with other churches or other church members, a lot of times nothing gets done. I mean, let's just be
Mhm.
honest. You
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
to the church board or you go to the leadership in
yeah,
the church, you say, well, can we
yeah,
do this? Can we go feed these people? And they go,
yeah.
no. And then you're wondering, okay, are we not still supposed to do
Right,
this? And so, but then
right.
there are people who wouldn't even step foot in a church that say, hey,
That's
I'll
right.
buy some bread, I'll get some
That's
meat,
right.
I'll get some, some condiments to go with those sandwiches. And
That's
so,
right.
and I don't believe it's not the Lord. I believe it's the Lord that opens up the opportunity. It's if
Yeah,
we're fearful and we don't want to go
yeah,
out, it is as if, like you said, all this training that we got over the years, all this development that we got when we were younger, what was
yeah,
it all for if it wasn't to
yeah.
reach another generation, to
That's
train
it.
another generation?
That's it.
You can't sit
That's
on it.
it.
And you know what?
No.
it's not always going to be found inside the four walls of the church. When the Lord when
Absolutely.
the Lord showed me that I was going to be doing ministry online, I was
Mhm.
not happy at first. I was like, no, I need to get
Mhm.
more speaking engagements and blah, 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 blah. And the Lord just really showed me over these years that if I'm obedient to what He wants me to do, I'm going to be more effective. When I do morning manna, I have people from Saudi Arabia, I have people in Pakistan, I have people in China, Australia that hear me bring a message or bring a word. Now it might not be millions yet. It ain't even thousands yet. But
All right.
nonetheless, I'm doing what God called me to do. And I'm not going to let myself be put in a box and lose out on the mission that God has for me. So that is so beautiful because I ask you this because I know, of course, I'm going to see you way before 5 years from now. But I hope I can come back to you 5 years from now and we have a reunion into conversation, and we see how God has taken what you've said and made it go way further than what you ever thought it could be. You know, um, I was going to ask what advice you have for the viewers, but you already gave it. You already said, "Hey, it's time to be about your father's business." But if you don't feel like you said it all, what advice would you have for individuals who want to serve, who have a servant mind, who also know their leader? What would you say that they? What advice would you give them if they are trapped with feeling like they shouldn't step forward or do what it is that God has called them to do out of fear that it's gonna ruffle some feathers?
That's good. I think you were talking about, the vetting process of, being an evangelist, people vetting you. Why I think too, with having pastors and that you're also vetting them. I think about an incident with my first pastor I loved so much. When I came to him and said, 'cause I know the church wasn't kind of political, wasn't like doing that sort of thing that I wanted to do with the Altadena Redevelopment Committee, even though that was outside of the church, he still encouraged me to go because I think sometimes leaders in the church feel that it's two separate entities, the political and the church. It's like, no, we need people that are praying in the White House. So I would definitely encourage you. I'll be praying for you that you even have a strategy and how to talk to that leader because sometimes leaders just don't know. They don't see how it's going to work together, even when the church is not offering it. But we also cannot die. We cannot, our ministry, what God has called us to cannot die out because there's no fulfillment there. I've been there, there's no fulfillment if you're not doing what God has called you to do. And I get it, that respect. I understand that. And I would also um, thinking about first lady, think about someone there in leadership who has a like mind because there was that one person who says, "Oh, I'm gonna go talk to the pastor for you and say this," and that changed everything. That was a game changer, and said it in a way that the pastor said, "Oh, this is what she was interested in." It's nothing that's gonna hurt the church. It's gonna help build the church, and even if when you're doing something, uh, the kingdom work outside of the church, now these people see the light, guess where they want to come because they're like, you can do this and you go to this church, they come
Mhm.
visit your church. So for to you the leader will see that what you're doing is not a hindrance, but it's building up not just the kingdom, but possible visit from those watching you. So I would one of the things I've taken on is doing it scared because I volunteer for things and I'm thinking, how did I get here? I would never have done that without um, Holy Spirit the impression on me. I would have never went by myself to another city to again feed the homeless. And like I'm gonna stay right here in my just as my area right here, only right here on this street. There's a whole world, and I believe what I've talking to different pastors this past year with the fires happening. It was encouraging for them to hear that I'm still, even if I wasn't settled, I'm still doing kingdom work. Like, I'm not gonna stop that, and I'm so grateful that no one is stopping me because I know not to be defiant or disobedient, but I it's like helping is breath for me. Help is breathing. So that's like saying, "You can't breathe?" I don't think so. So I rather me not get in trouble. You want me to not be in trouble with the Father. And so my encouragement is that you also find advocates who are maybe your friends with the pastors. I think having someone who have their ear, because even if it's not me that has a pastor's ear, there's someone in that circle of the connection that has the ear, but also just looking for those things. It was not even about doing something big. It was about, okay, this is happening in my community because your church does want you to be a part of that community. Don't forget that. Um, you have to be seen outside as well because it's like Evangelist Watson, you mentioned people who may never step into the church because literally people will say, "Oh, I heard you talking about, uh, I heard you talking about Jesus. I didn't know you. What church do you go to? Oh, we're doing this. Would your church be interested in doing this?" Now you just got an open door to the city that you would not have had um, not doing anything. So I would tell you, don't be afraid to say something. The time that we're in, a closed mouth is not feeding the sheep. So we cannot be afraid from we can our leaders. We cannot feel we cannot not want to talk to our leaders because the conversations I have with with the ones I know, I'm like, oh, how did I get here? I can't believe I didn't get shut down. And sometimes it doesn't always work out the way you want, but it's important that your voice is heard because you are not trying to harm the church. You want to be helpful in building the church.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my goodness. This has been such a great conversation. I have
Mhm.
enjoyed talking to you, sis. You know, we go way, way, way back. I
Yes,
said
we
way, way,
do.
way.
Yes,
We
we
go way
do.
back. And
Yes, we
you
do.
know, you are more than just a friend, a church, cohort. You are truly a sister. I've had multiple different surgeries, and when I woke up, you was either in the hospital or close to the bed. And so I know that you are truly a Florence Nightingale. You are a lady that carries the lamp. I was told that one of your favorite scriptures is John 9, 4 through 5. And I'm going to read that real quickly. In John 9, 4 through 5, it says, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. That is completely the mindset of a servant leader, recognizing that you are in the world as a light. That's what we're here for. We're here
Mhm,
to spread the gospel and shine the
mhm,
light on Jesus.
mhm.
And if we're not doing
Yeah.
that, then why are we having church? Why are we getting together, gathering together? I don't know. But what I do know is that a true warrior understands what they're supposed to do. I
Mhm.
have enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you've
Yeah.
enjoyed this conversation too. Sis, before I do my
Bye.
complete wrap up, how can they get in? How can they follow you on the social media platforms? I'm gonna sound like an old person for your advocacy program. How can they find you?
Absolutely. On Facebook, I do have a page, Golden Age Advocacy. Also, Felicia Michelle. Um, Felicia Michelle Lee. You're probably gonna see my nephew on one of those. But on Instagram, Felicia Michelle Jury. Follow me there. You can also send me inboxes, questions you may have. And on TikTok, Felicia Michelle Jury. On TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Yes. So those are the ways you can find me. My email, servantmind0@gmail.com. You can email me directly as well.
All right. So if you have any questions about how to get started, you interested in trying to join her in her advocacy program, I mean, because she says she's ready to partner and she's giving us the green light saying, hey, you need to partner too. So I
Mhm.
think it's important for people to understand that being a warrior is a call from the Lord. God has already put the clarion call out there. It's just, are we gonna answer and be that warrior? Are we gonna fight the good fight of faith? I don't
Amen.
know if everybody's going to do it. I know I am. And I
Mhm.
know the people that I surround myself are. And
Mhm.
I just thank you for coming on tonight,
Thank you so much.
Evangelist Lee. And
Thank you.
I can't wait to have you on again so we can get we
Mhm.
can catch up on all the things that you're doing because this sister is a hard working sister. This morning she was at a hospital, went to work, went to a recital, and now she's on this podcast. I tell you, see, and you think it's just certain people out there.
Mhm.
No, anybody
Mhm.
could do this. Not,
Yeah.
I'm not
Mhm.
belittling what she's doing. I'm saying God
Mhm.
said He wants all of us to do this.
Yeah.
Hey, but that's
Amen.
all right. Thank you for
Mhm.
joining me tonight.
Amen.
And I
Thank
look forward for you joining me
you.
for another episode of the Warriors Podcast. Bye
Thank
bye
you so
and
much.
good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.